Begin today the Gemara on Daf Nun Daled Amud Aleph, right at the beginning of the Yomud. Tanya Kvasei Derava. So we're in the middle of a sugya. There's a Mishnah before on Daf Nun Gimel Amud Aleph where it brought a machlekes between the Tanakama, the Chachamim, and Rabbi Yehuda regarding a case of a person that had a relation with his mother that's also his father's wife. So in such a case, the Tanakama says that he's chayav twice. There's the Isser of Baal Imai, and also Isser of Baal Eshesav. But according to Rabbi Yehuda, in such a case, he's only chayav for Baal Imai. He's not chayav for Eshesav. Okay, so the Gemara before discussed different ways how to understand the source of Rabbi Yehuda's opinion. The Gemara brought Rav's opinion about this, and here the Gemara will bring a Braisa that will explain the source of Rabbi Yehuda, and then the Gemara will also discuss the Rabbanon, why they argue with Rabbi Yehuda. So it's a pretty lengthy discussion here in the Gemara. One thing to keep in mind, and what the Gemara is going to say here is, first of all, actually, to keep in mind is the psukim that the Gemara is going to speak about. If you have these psukim in mind, then the Gemara is easier to understand. You have the psukim quoted over here on the side of the Gemara. The psukim mainly that the Gemara is going to discuss is the psukim you see here, at least in this Gemara, the Ois V'Hada Gemara on Daf Nun Daled, you have an Ois Gimel and an Ois Hey, two different psukim that the Gemara quoted before already, that are one right after the other in Parshas Achrei Mos, I think it is. In one pasuk it says, Ervas Avicha ve'ervas Imcha lo yisegale Imcha hi lo yisegale ervasa. It's one pasuk. Then there's another pasuk right afterwards, Ervas Eshes Avicha lo yisegale ervas Avicha hi. Those two psukim. Then there's another pasuk that's later in Parshas Kedoshim where it says Ve'ish oy isha ki yebem oy v'yedaini. That's the 1 second. No, that's the pasuk about oy v'yedaini. That's not the pasuk I'm looking for. The one that's quoted in Aleph here. This is the first pasuk the Gemara is going to start with. Ve'ish asher yishka v'eshes aviv ervas aviv gila ma'isum sushneim d'meim bam. That's another pasuk the Gemara is going to discuss. So the way Rabbi Yehuda learns these psukim, the way that Rabbanon learn these psukim are different, as we'll see in the Gemara. Another thing to have in mind there in the Gemara is that whenever we speak about any Isser regarding Arayis, there is the Azhara, where the Torah is telling you the Isser, it's warning you not to do it, and then there's the Einish, there's the punishment, and you have to have a pasuk for each separately. The fact that the Torah gives a Azhara doesn't tell you that there's an Einish, and if the Torah says an Einish, but there's no warning, so then there's no Issa either. You have to have a pasuk for both, the Azhara and the Einish. Okay, now let's see the Braisa. The Gemara begins with this Braisa. This is a Braisa which is actually Rabbi Yehuda. Even though it doesn't say clearly that this is Rabbi Yehuda, but as Rashi here brings, this is a Braisa from Toras Kainim, and the klal is, Stam Sifra is Rabbi Yehuda. So since it's a Braisa from Sifra, which is Toras Kainim, so this is Rabbi Yehuda. Okay, says the Gemara Tanya Kvasei Derava. We learned, like what Rav said, the source of Rabbi Yehuda's opinion. When a person is Ba al Eshes Aviv, it's his mother, it's Imai, and it's also Eshes Aviv, that he's only Chai for the fact that it's his mother. So here in the Braisa, it says the source for this, according to Rabbi Yehuda. So the pasuk says Ish. So this is quoting the pasuk in Parshas Kedoshim where it says Ve'ish asher yishka ves Eshes Aviv ervas Aviv gila ma'isum sushneim d'meim bam. So when it says Ish prat lekatan, that means a man, not excluding a cotton. There's no einish, there's no isra by the cotton. Then it says, Asher Yishkav es Eshes Aviv, he lay with the wife of his father. So now mashma, it would seem that the pshat on the pasuk here is, Bein Eshes Aviv shehi imai, whether it's his father's wife, that's his mother, or Bein Eshes Aviv shalai imai, or it's his father's wife, that's not his mother. That's what we would learn. That's how we would understand the pshat in the pasuk here. Now the Braisa here will conclude that that's not the case, because according to Rabbi Yehuda, if it's his mother, then you're not chayav for the fact that it's his father's wife. But that's what it would seem from this pasuk. Okay, now the Braisa goes on. Rabbi Yehuda goes on to say, from where do I know that a person that has a relation with his mother, which is not his father's wife? Now what that means is that it's his mother because his father had a relation with his mother, but not in marriage, without marriage. Anusas Aviv. That's what it means, Ime, which is not Eshes Aviv. So Minayin, how do I know if a person has a relation with his mother, which is not his father's wife, that is also Einish? Talmud Laima, Ervas Aviv Gila. And so in the pasuk here, it goes on to say, Ervas Aviv Gila. So these are extra words, Mufne. That's what mufta means, it's extra. Lahakish v'lodin mimenu gzeira shava. So I learn out a gzeira shava to teach me that even for a mother, there's also an einish. Now, what exactly the gzeira shava is, Braisa will conclude at the end. Okay, but let's see the continuation of the Braisa, and then at the end it'll conclude what the einish is. Again?
It's his father, and it says his mother, or it's not?
Not Eshesav. Yeah, I explained, because she was never married to him.
What's lahakish?
Again?
Lahakish?
Lahakish v'lodin mimenu gzeira shava. These extra words are written to compare to something else through a gzeira shava. Now, what we're comparing to through a gzeira shava, as I said, the Braisa will say. Okay, now this pasuk goes on to say, Mois yumasu, that they have to be put to death. This is beskila. The einish for this is going to be skila. Now, atayim beskila, you say that the einish here is the highest level of misa, which is skila. Maybe the einish is one of the other misas that it says in the Torah. So we learn out, and this is something similar the Gemara already said before, the source of skila is this expression. It says the expression of dmeyim bam. And ba'evi yadaini, it uses the term dmeyim bam. Ma'ala alon, just like ba'evi yadaini, b'skila, there the Torah clearly spells out that dmeyim bam is skila. Afkan, so to here, when it uses the expression of dmeyim bam, b'skila, it means skila. Okay, so now this is the drasha of the pasuk in Parshas Kedoshim, where it says the einish for this aveda. The difference between the psukim and Parshas Achrei Mos and the psukim and Parshas Kedoshim, where both speak about arayis. In Achrei Mos it says the azhara, and in Kedoshim it says the einish. So here we have the einish. It says the Braisa Vaiter einish shamayno. So here we see the einish, both for Eshesav and for the mother as well. Azhara minayin, where's the source for the warning of this iser? Talmud Laima. So we go back now to the pasuk in Parshas Achrei Mos, where there it says Ervas avicha lo yisegala. Ervas avicha. When it says Ervas avicha, what does that mean? Zu eishes avicha. It doesn't mean the father. It means the father's wife. You say it refers to the father's wife. Maybe it literally means that you shouldn't have a relation with your father. So for this, the Braisa says no. There's a limud nemakan ervas avicha. It says here the term of ervas avicha. And v'nemar lahalon, going back to the pasuk that we quoted before, it says ervas aviv gila. So malalon beishus akasav medaber, just like in the first pasuk we quoted, it's not talking about the father himself. It's talking about the father's wife, because there the pasuk says it clearly. Beisha sheyishka v'eishus aviv, and then it says ervas aviv gila. So it's clearly talking about the father's wife. So Afkan in this pasuk as well in Parshas Achrei Mos, where it's giving the azhara beishus akasav medaber. It's speaking about the wife of the father and not the father himself. So this is the source, the azhara, not to have a relation with the father's wife. Now again, the Braisa says, looking at this pasuk, it would seem umashma bein eishes aviv shehi imay. This would be the father's wife, whether this is his mother as well. Bein eishes aviv she'eni imay. If it's not his mother, either way, he would be chayiv for eishes aviv. There's the azhara and there's the einish. Now, as I said, the Braisa, this is Rabbi Yehuda, and the Braisa will conclude that even though it's mashma this way, but the poil, that's not the halacha, as we'll see in a moment. Now, the Braisa goes on to say, Imoy she'enei shesav minayin, if one has a relation with his mother, that's not his father's wife. Again, as I mentioned, that's anusa saviv. It's his mother, but she was never legitimately married to her father. So minayin, from where do I know that he may not have a relation with his mother? Talmud Laima, the pasuk goes on to say, Ervas imcha lo yisegala. That same pasuk in Parshas Achrei Mos, it says Ervas avicha, and then it says ve'ervas imcha lo yisegale. So from here I see that there's a azhara for a relation with the mother as well. Now, Ein li azhara. So here the Braisa brings the gzeira shava that it mentioned before. Ein li azhara. So regarding the mother, I only see the warning in this pasuk that one may not have a relation with the mother. Sha'asa kasev imay. She'ena eishes aviv ki imay shehi eishes aviv. So we see here in the pasuk that the Torah considers the mother that's not the father's wife, just like the father's wife, because that's why the pasuk is spelling out clearly imay. Now einish minayin. From where do I know that there's an einish, the same einish that we mentioned before regarding eishes aviv skila? How do I know that the same einish applies also to when one has a relation with his mother? So we go back to the gzeira shava that was mentioned before. Nemar kan ervas avicha leisegale, v'nemar la'alon ervas aviv gila. These two psukim, one pasuk where it speaks about the einish it says the term of Ervas Avicha, and over here where it speaks about the Azhara, it says again the similar lashon of Ervas Avicha. So I say, Ma ba'azhara asa kasav imoy she'ene eshesaviv ki imoy she'eshesaviv. Just like when it comes to the warning, the pasuk is comparing the two, and it considers the mother that's not his father's wife to be the same as the mother which is the father's wife. That's regarding the warning. Af ba'aynesh, so too I compare them to say regarding the punishment, asa kasav imoy she'ene eshesaviv ki imoy she'i eshesaviv. That the aynish also applies by a mother, even if it's not his father's wife. Okay, but now here Rabbi Yehuda in this Braise concludes, and this is the source of what Rabbi Yehuda said in the Mishnah, that now this pasuk again. So let me read the pasuk one more time, so you'll see the context of how Rabbi Yehuda darshans this. The pasuk says Ervas Avicha, which according to Rabbi Yehuda, Ervas Avicha means the father's wife. Then it says Ervas Imcha, which means the mother, Leisagala, and then the pasuk says Imcha Hi. This is your mother. Now, why is it saying at the end of the pasuk Imcha Hi? Comes Rabbi Yehuda and says Imchahi when the pasuk finishes off and says again Imchahi. Why is it saying this? In the case where his father's wife is also his mother, then he's only going to be chayiv for the fact that it's his mother and not for the fact that it's his father's wife. So what the Braise said twice before, both by the Einish and by the Azhara, the Braise used the lashon mashma, that it would seem when one is chayiv for Eishes Aviv, that's whether it's his mother or not his mother. So now Rabbi Yehuda says, if you look in the context of the pasuk, so the pasuk is coming to say that that's not the case. Because in the first half of the pasuk it says Ervas Avicha, which is Eishes Av. It would seem that that's in any case chayiv for Eishes Av. Then it goes on to say Ervas Imcha, the mother. And then it concludes Imchahi, that you're only chayiv for the fact that it's your mother. So why is the pasuk writing this? To clarify that in the beginning of the pasuk, when it said Ervas Avicha, don't think you're going to be chayiv for Eishes Avicha if it's your mother. If it's the mother, so then you're only chayiv for the fact that it's your mother. This is Rabbi Yehuda. This was exactly the drasha, the way Rav darshaned it before, and this is a clear brayso. This is what Rabbi Yehuda says. Okay, so now the Gemara will explain how does the Rabbanon deal with these psukim. How do they darshan these psukim? Since the Rabbanon do not hold of this drasha, and they hold that when one has a relation with Ervas Eishes Aviv, father's wife, which is also his mother, Yechayev for both. So they don't hold of this miyat of Imchahi. So what are they darshan from Imchahi, and how do they learn this pasuk? So the Gemara explains. It's like the Gemara Rabbanon, according to the Rabbanon. So first of all, the argument of the Rabbanon begins really not only regarding the word Imchahi, but it begins in the beginning of the pasuk. How do you darshan the word Ervas Avicha? Now, the Rabbanan say Ervas Avicha in the beginning of this pasuk means mamish. It means literally that one should not have a relation with his father, not with his father's wife. So if that's the case, the whole drasha of Rabbi Yehuda goes away. Because according to Rabbi Yehuda, since the beginning of the pasuk, Ervas Avicha was talking about Eishes Av, so in the end of the pasuk, when it says Imchahi, it was clarifying regarding that Eishes Av is only if it's not your mother. But if it is your mother, then you're not chayiv for Eishes Av. But the Rabbanan say the beginning of the pasuk is not even talking about Eishes Av. The beginning of the pasuk is talking about one that has a relation with his father, which is Mishkav Zachar. So the Gemara asks on that. So why do you need a pasuk to say that there's this isser of Mishkav Zachar? Hai meveh Zachar nafke. There's another pasuk to say that you're not allowed to have a relation with any Zachar. Why dafke here is it saying this regarding a father? Says the Gemara, according to the Rabbanan, l'chayev olav shtayim. It's saying that in a case where one has a relation with his father, so he's going to be chayiv once for Bechlal, the Isser of Mishkav Zachar, and the fact that it's his father. Rav Yehuda, this is based on what Rav Yehuda said. Don't confuse this Rav Yehuda with the Rabbi Yehuda, which is the Tana. This is Rav Yehuda, which is an Amayra, that we're using him to explain the Rabbanah's opinion. Rav Yehuda said, Nochri haba alaviv, a Nochri that has a relation with his father. In a moment, the Gemara is going to clarify it doesn't mean a guy. It's just using this expression, but it means a Yid that has a relation with his father. Chayiv shtayim. He'll be chayiv twice. Once because it's a Zachar, Mishkav Zachar, and the second time, as we just said, that it's Ervas Avicha. Now, haba alachi aviv, similar, one that has a relation with his uncle, with his father's brother. Chayiv shtayim. He's also going to be chayiv twice because besides the pasuk of Zachar, there's also a pasuk. She brings it. There's a pasuk that says Ervas achi avicha loisegala, and that also means an uncle, not the uncle's wife, but it means the taka the uncle, and therefore you chayiv twice over there for Mishkav Zachar. Omar Rave, so Rave says about this brayso we just quoted here, or not brayso really. This is the statement of Rav Yehuda. Mestavre milsa de Rav Yehuda. It's logical that what was Rav Yehuda talking about, even though he uses this term nachri, but he was talking about B'Yisrael. He's talking about a yid, and it's talking about b'shaygig. In a case where a yid did this aveda b'shaygig, and ubekarbon, the relevance of the fact that he's chayiv twice is for a carbon. Because if he did it b'mezid and he's chayiv skila, you're not giving him the misa of skila twice anyways. So there's no point of saying that he's chayiv twice. The chayiv twice is for shaygig when he's going to have to bring twice a carbon chatas. The fact that he uses this term nachri, lishne ma'al yehu, he's using a clean language because we don't want to use a language of a yid that does such a kind of aveda. Now, if you would say that Rav Yehuda was talking literally about a guy that had a relation with his father, so dinay mai niu, what is his punishment? Ketala. By the case of a guy, his einish is misa. So betrei katli katlaslei. What's the point of saying that it'll be chayiv twice? You're giving him misa twice. Now, regarding the guy, some say that this is even by a shaygig. The fact that it's chayiv misa is even by a shaygig. Others say that it's only by a mezid. But the point is, if it's talking about a guy, then the einish that he gets is misa. There is no karma chatas by a guy. So then it can't be saying this by a guy that he's chayiv twice. So Gemara Tanya Nami Hachi, we learned in a Braise, just like what Rav Yehuda said, Haba Laviv Chayiv Shtayim, one that has a relation with his father is Chayiv twice, for Mishkav Zochar, and for the fact that it's his father. Haba Lachi Aviv, also Chayiv Shtayim, for Mishkav Zochar, and for the fact that it's his uncle. So it's a clear Braise, like what Rav Yehuda said. Now, based on what we learned before, it would come out, seemingly, that this Braise is only according to the Rabbanan. Because only according to the Rabbanon, when it says in the pasuk Erva Savicha, that refers to a relation with the father. According to Rabbi Yehuda, when it says in the pasuk Erva Savicha, it actually means the father's wife. So it can't be according to Rabbi Yehuda that it's saying that one that has a relation with his father is chayiv twice. There is no second source because that's the father's wife. But the Gemara actually brings that there's two versions about this. Ikeda so some say, as it would seem, simply the like Rabbi Yehuda, that this Braisa is not following Rabbi Yehuda, as I just explained, because according to Rabbi Yehuda, there's no second source for the Isser of the relation with the father, because that pasuk of Erva Savicha is talking about the father's wife. Ikeda but others say, Afilatei Rabbi Yehuda, that this Braisa could be Rabbi Yehuda's opinion, that when one has a relation with his uncle, he's chayiv twice, and when one has a relation with his father, he's also chayiv twice. According to Rabbi Yehuda, by the father, there is no pasuk where it says that he's going to be chayiv for a relation with his father. The answer is a ma'isi law b'kavachaymer machi aviv. According to even Rabbi Yehuda would agree that you could learn it with a kavachaymer from achi aviv. By the case of achi aviv, in that pasuk, even Rabbi Yehuda agrees that it's talking about a relation with the father's brother, with the uncle, not with the uncle's wife. So over there, the pasuk says ervas achi avicha lo yisegala. Even Rabbi Yehuda agrees it's talking about the uncle, not the uncle's wife. So therefore, there's a kal v'chaymer. Oma achi aviv. If when it comes to uncle, the korvid avivu, that this is a relation because of the fact that it's your father's brother. Chayiv shtayim over there, one is chayiv twice for mishkav zachar and for the fact that it's his uncle. Aviv lekol shekain. So by a father, if if his father himself, not the father's brother, definitely over here you'd be chayiv twice. So therefore, even Rabbi Yehuda would agree to what it says in this Braisa that you chayiv twice. Now the Gemara explains these two versions that we just brought, whether I could learn this kal v'chaymer or not, or kamiflegi beplukte da'abai v'rava. These two versions are arguing in an argument that Abai and Rava had about this. Mar Savar, one opinion is Oinshin min adin, that you could give an einish for an erve, even if it doesn't say it clearly in the pasuk, but you learn it just with a kal v'chaymer. But Mar Savar, another opinion is that, this is later in the Masechta, we'll see, Ein Einshin min adin. You can't give a punishment based on a kal v'chaymer. So over here, when the Torah says that there's the einish of, or there's the twice a carbon chatos for Evas Achia Havicha, and you want to make a kal v'chaymer to Avicha, to the father, if you say Einshin min adin, you can make the kal v'chaymer. But if you say Ein Einshin min adin, there's no such kal v'chaymer b'chlal. So that's I think some Achrayim, I think it's the Aruch Laner, he says that the Gemara here, what it means to say is, even if everybody holds Ein Einshin min adin, but this case is a little bit different. Over here you could say that if you're not, even though the Torah did not say by the father that there's an extra Isra, there's an extra Einish for Ervas Avicha, but once it says Achi Avicha is based on the fact that he's your father's brother. So it's automatically understood that it includes the father as well. So it's not even like kal v'chaymer to something else. It's mamish understood that it includes the father. So the machlokes over here is whether in such a case you could learn it out. Even the one that holds ein einshem min adin, maybe here you could learn it out. Okay, now the Gemara goes back. We're middle of a discussion over here regarding how you learn these psukim according to Rabbi Yehuda and the Rabbanan. So the Gemara now returns to the Rabbanan. Now the Rabbanan, according to the Rabbanan, Azhar leishis aviv minalahu. From where do they learn out that one may not have a relation with his father's wife, even if it's not his mother? So according to Rabbi Yehuda, the source was this pasuk where it says Ervas Avicha. That refers to the father's wife. But according to the Rabbanan, that pasuk actually refers to the father himself. So where's their source for Eishes Avicha? Says the Gemara Nafkaluhu, they learn it out from another pasuk. This is the next pasuk. After this pasuk of that we were speaking about till here, Ervas Avicha, on the next pasuk it says clearly, Me Ervas Eishes Avicha loisagala. There it says Ervas Eishes Achicha. That's the Avicha, that is. That's the source according to the Rabbanan. Now, but Rabbi Yehuda, according to Rabbi Yehuda, if Ervas Avicha means the father's wife, so what does Ervas Eishes Avicha come to teach? According to Rabbi Yehuda, this pasuk is coming to say La azhara le'eshes aviv la'achamisa, that one may not have a relation with his father's wife even after his father passes away. You may think that after the father passes away, so then it's allowed. So therefore, it's coming to say even then the Isser still applies. Now, but Rabbanan, according to the Rabbanan, where do they learn this out from? Since they only have one pasuk as a source for Ervas Eishes Avicha, so how do they know that it applies even after the father dies? Says the Gemara, according to the Rabbanan, they learn this out from the continuation, from the end of that pasuk. Ervas Eishes Avicha le'segala. Then it says again, Ervas Avicha hi. What is those words Ervas Avicha coming to say? It's coming to teach me this, that even after the father dies, the wife is still considered to be Ervas Avicha. But Rabbi Yehuda, according to Rabbi Yehuda, that's not necessary to learn it from here. He already has two psukim for Ervas Eishes Avicha. So what are these words Ervas Avicha he come to teach? Ahomi bayale, he learns out from this. It's an exclusion. Mishum Eishes avat mechayva v'yat mechayva mishum Eishes ish. That he's only going to be chayiv for the fact that it's a father's wife, but not Eishes ish. The second Isser of Eishes ish will not apply in this case. That's what we learn from it. So it's an exclusion. So the Gemara asks on this, but it doesn't seem to fit with what it said in the Mishnah. Before in Daf Nun Gimel, the Mishnah said, "V'anan tanan abal eishesav chayev aleh mishum eishesav umishum eishesish." If one has a relation with his father's wife, he's chayev twice, for eishesav and for eishesish. And the Mishnah goes on to say that's bein b'chayav and bein la'acham misa saviv. The Isser of eishesav applies when the father is alive, when the father is not alive. But the point is the first half of what the Gemara is quoting here. You see here that when one has a relation with his father's wife when the father is still alive, you're chayav for both, for eishesav and for eishesish. So how are we saying that Rabbi Yehuda says that we learn out that we exclude the Isser of eishesish in this case? And the Gemara explains, v'lei palig Rabbi Yehuda. In the Mishnah, Rabbi Yehuda didn't argue on this, so we see that Rabbi Yehuda agrees. Abaye answers, Polig bebraisa. Even though in the Mishnah it didn't say clearly that he argues, but based on what Rabbi Yehuda, the way he learns the psukim here in the Braisa, it will come out that Rabbi Yehuda argues. So it wasn't specified in the Mishnah, but in the Braisa it comes out that he does argue. The Gemara goes back not to the opinion of the Rabbanon, Einish, the Eishes Aviv, La'acha Misa Minalahu. According to the Rabbanan, as I pointed out right in the beginning, it's not enough just to have Azhara, but you need a separate pasuk for the Einish as well. So now according to the Rabbanan, the Einish, in the case of Eishes Aviv, after Misa, what's the source according to the Rabbanan? So the Gemara explains, why is it asking this question only according to the Rabbanan? According to Rabbi Yehuda, we understand, they learn it out with Gzeir Shava. In the beginning, when the Gemara brought the Braisa, the Gemara brought the pasuk, which says by the Einish, Ervas Aviv Gila, and the pasuk that it says by the Azhara, where the pasuk says Ervas Avicha Loisagale. And according to Rabbi Yehuda, there's a Gzeir Shava to compare Einish to Azhara. That where there's the Azhara, there's also the Einish. So according to Rabbi Yehuda, we don't need a separate pasuk for the Einish. But the Rabbanan that do not hold to that Gzeir Shava, what's their source for the Einish in the case of Eishes Aviv after the father passed away? They answer you, Ervas Aviv Gila. According to them, they learn it out from the words Ervas Aviv Gila that it says by the pasuk of the Einish. The map, Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yehuda, for him that was the source of the Gzeir Shava that we Bechlal always compare the Einish to the Azhara. Mafkile inu Einish the Eishes Aviv la'achamisa. According to the Rabbanan, that pasuk of Ervas Aviv Gila is specifically talking about the father's wife after the father passed away. Now, the last point here, the Gemara says, according to the Rabbanon, v'Rabbanon, Einish, since the Rabbanon do not have this Gzeir Shaveh, to compare the Einish to Hazara, v'Rabbanon, Einish li'imai, she'ena eishis aviv minalahu. What is the source according to the Rabbanon, that if one has a relation with his mother, and it's not his father's wife, how do they know that there's an Einish for this? It only says, the Isser, the potato, it says, Ervas imcha lo yisagale imchi, but it doesn't say the potato the Einish for the mother. So if there's no Gzeir Shaveh, according to the Rabbanan, what's the source? Rav Sheisha Berei Ravidi. So Rav Sheisha Berei Ravidi says, Amakra imcha hi. Those extra words, imcha hi, what is this coming to teach? According to Rabbi Yehuda, imcha hi was the source to say that if it's your mother and the father's wife, you only chayiv for imcha, not for Eishes Aviv. So now Rabbanan disagree with that. Rabbanan say you are chayiv for both. So what do you learn out from imcha hi? Asa kasavli imay she'ena eishes aviv. The Torah is adding this to say that the halacha, the einish of a mother that's not the father's wife, is considered to be just like imay she'ena eishes aviv, just like a mother that is the father's wife, just like by eishes aviv, the Torah clearly says the einish of skila. So too by a mother that's not the father's wife, there's also the einish of skila. That's the imchahi that the Rabbanan learn out. So here, this is the machlekes of Rabbanan and Rabbi Yehuda, whether in a case where it's imcha and eishes aviv, will you be chayiv for both together? According to the Rabbanan, you chayiv for both. It says imchahi. Imchahi is not an exclusion. Imchahi is just coming to compare, to say that you get the einish of skila for a mother, just like when it's eishes aviv. But according to Rabbi Yehuda, it's actually an exclusion. It's coming to say imchahi, that you only chayiv for a mother and not for eishes aviv when it's both. But you're only going to be chayiv for imcha, for the fact that it's the mother. Okay, that's all the drashas over here. It's a little bit complicated, all the psukim. I think they have over there a chart for all the psukim, exactly, the maskan of everything. All right. Let's see the Gemara Vayta. So it said in the Mishnah, Baal Kalosai, one that has a relation with his daughter-in-law, so he's going to be chayiv for daughter-in-law, as it says in the pasuk. But the Gemara asks on this, but he should also be chayiv for the fact that it's his son's wife. Now, what is the Gemara asking by this? If his son's wife, that's a daughter-in-law. But the thing is, the reason the Gemara is asking this is because, as we'll see in the continuation of the Gemara, it says in the pasuk both expressions. It says ervas kaloscha loisagale, and then it says eishes bin chayi loisagale ervasa. So it says two expressions. So you should be chayiv for the fact that it's your daughter-in-law, and it's also your son's wife. That's what it seems. The pasuk is saying two expressions. Amar Abaye says, no, Pasach HaKasav B'Kalase. The Pasach begins with the expression that it's your daughter-in-law, but then the V'siyim Be'eshes B'noi, then it says that it's your son's wife. Loi Malacha, it's actually putting it both together to say, Zui Kalase, Zui Yeshes B'noi, that even though it's sort of related to you in two ways, number one, it's your daughter-in-law, number two, it's your son's wife, but it's the same thing, and you're only going to be chayiv actually once. So Mishnah, continuing in other cases where there's a chiyuv of skila, habal azachor, one that has a relation with a zachar, mishkav zachar, or a behema with an animal, va'isha hamevias a behema, or the woman that brings a behema on her, b'skila. They're going to be chayiv skila. Now the skila here refers to both. By the behema as well, it's the man and the animal as well have to be stoned to death. The Mishnah goes on to say, if the person sinned, and therefore the skila for him, but the animal, what did it sin for? Why should it be chayiv skila? The animal doesn't have that awareness. Why is it chayiv skila? Says the Gemara, because the person stumbled in this avera through this animal, it caused this avera. The Torah says that the animal should be stoned to death as well. Another pshat, why the animal is stoned. This animal shouldn't walk in the street, and people will say, this is the animal that so-and-so was stoned because of this animal. The Gemara will explain the difference between these two reasons. So the Gemara, from where do I know the isser of one not having a relation with a zachar? The Gemara actually begins with the pasuk where there's the einish. Not as I mentioned, you need the azhara, the warning, and the einish. The Gemara brings with the braise that brings the einish. The Tana Rabbanan, so we learned in the braise. It says ish, a man brought the cotton, so it doesn't apply to a cotton that has a relation. He doesn't have this einish. Then it says asher yishkaf ez zachar. He had a relation with a zachar. That means ben gadol ben cotton. He had a relation with a zachar. The person that he has a relation with, it's whether he's a gadol or even a cotton. Soon the Gemara will bring a machlokes. What's the minimum age that he had a relation with that he would be chayav for? Then it says mishkevei isha. What does this mean? Magid l'cha kaso sheshnei mishkavis b'isha. The plural term of mishka v'isha says that by relation with the woman, by all arayis, there's two kinds of mishkavis by isha, normal and the abnormal way. Then in both of them there's a iser. Now, Amar Rabbi Shmuel says about this, Hareza Bal Lamed, it's written here regarding Mishkav Zachar to teach the Isser of Mishkav Zachar, but really Venim Lamed. But it ends up teaching me regarding Arayis by a woman that whether it's normal or abnormal, in both ways, you're going to be Chayev. That's the main reason why it's saying it, to teach it by all Arayis by Isha. The pasuk concludes, Mais Yumasu beskila. Mais Yumasu means skila. Atoy me beskila, you say it's skila. Maybe it's one of the other mises that I said in the Torah. Says the Gemara, no, nema kant meyem bam. V'nema boiv yudayni d'meyem bam. So mala alon beskila, avkam beskila. We learn from Oivin Yudayni that skila, so here as well, it's skila. Okay, now, Einish Shemaim. This is the pasuk about the punishment of Mishkav Zachar. Azhara minayin. What's the pasuk of the warning? Talmud Laimar. So we go back to the pasuk that's in Parshas Achrei Mos. There it says, "Ve'zachar le'sishkav mishka ve'isha toyevihi." It's an abominable act. Lamadnu azhara l'sheichiv. Now in this pasuk we see the iser for the sheichiv, for the one that's doing the act, the one that's active. Azhara le'nishkav minayin. How do I know that there's the same warning for the nishkav, for the other one that lay with him? How do we know that the iser applies to him as well? And the Einish as well. Talmud Laimar lo yiyeh kodesh mibnei Yisrael. Another pasuk where it says, this is a completely different place, and I think it's in Parshas Kiseitze, totally did. So there the pasuk says lo yiyeh kodesh. What does it mean lo yiyeh kodesh? Kodesh is a reference to znus. And what kind of znus are we talking about? V'aymer, there's another pasuk that says v'gam kodesh hoya ba'aretz. And what does that mean? They did like all the abominable acts of the Goyim, that Hashem took them out, or that Hashem expelled them from the land. And over there, it's talking about Mishkav Zachar. So therefore, we learn out when it says La'iyah Kadesh Mibnei Yisrael, that it refers to Mishkav Zachar, and it's coming to say not only the Sheichiv, but the Nishkav as well will be is also a warning for this. Devrei Rabbi Shmuel. That's the source according to Rabbi Shmuel. Rabbi Kiva says, Ein tzarich. It's not necessary to have the source from this pasuk that you brought of Kaddish. Because in this pasuk itself, this warning here in Parshas Achrei Mos, where it says Ve'zachar le'sishkav mishka ve'isha, so there's another way to pronounce it. Kiribei, instead of reading le'sishkav, that's the Messiah of how you read it, but you could also read it as le'sishachev, that you should not lay, and the other that does the act, that you should not lay with him, even the nishkav is also warned as well. So you read it in both ways, so therefore both sources are from the same pasuk. You're not learning it out from another pasuk. Okay, now we learned also in the Mishnah the Isser of with a behemoth. Behemoth minolon. What's the source of the Isser of a relation with a behemoth? Tana Rabbanan, so we learned in the Braise, the pasuk. This is the pasuk in Parshas Kedoshim where it says the Einish, why a behemoth ish prat lekatan. It doesn't apply by cotton. Then it says ashayit and shchafte bebehemoth ben gdaila ben ketana. By an animal, there's no difference in the age of the animal, whether it's gdaila or ketana. Mais yumas, then it says that laying with a behemoth, the punishment that is skila, beskila. Atoime beskila, oyen elabach is become somewhat is betaira. Maybe it's one of the other mises that the Torah says. Nema kan taregu. The term used here in the pasuk is taregu. V'nema la'alon ki horek tahargenu, and then it says also later ki horek tahargenu. It's a pasuk that it says, and here in that pasuk it clearly says. There it's talking about skila. Ma'ala halon, just like in that pasuk, it's beskila. Afkan beskila. So to over here, it's skila. Okay, so lamadnu einish. This is the source in Parshas Kedoshim, the einish for a mishkav with a behemoth, and that's l'sheichiv, so the one that lay with the behemoth. Now einish l'nishkav minayin. How do I know that there's the same einish if the behemoth lay with him? Talmud Laima kol sheichiv v'behema mois yumas. The pasuk says kol sheichiv v'behema mois yumas. Now this is a pasuk actually in Parshas Mishpatim. What is this pasuk coming to say? So it says sheichiv, but if it's not necessary for the sheichiv because it already says in Parshas Kedoshim the einish for a sheichiv taneyu inyan lenishkav. So it's talking about the nishkav, the one that allows the behemoth to lay with him. So this is the einish. Lamadnu einish bein l'sheichiv bein l'nishkav. As haraminayim, where's the warning for this? Talmud Laimar. So the pasuk says in Parshas Achrei Mos, uv'chol beheme loy sitin shchavtecha l'tama ba. That so here a person may not lay with an animal. That's the warning. So this is the source of the warning for the sheikhiv. Lenishkav minayin, the one that allows the behemoth to lay with him. What's the source of the azhara here? Talmud loymar lo yiyeh kadesh mibnei Yisrael v'oimer v'gam kadesh yiyeh ba'aretz v'goymer divrei Rabbi Shmuel. So Rabbi Shmuel says that the source is the same as we brought before regarding one that the nishkav of or the sheikhiv that is of mishkav zachar. So the Nishkav we're talking about, right? The Nishkav by Mishkav Zachar, we brought this pasuk of Kadesh. It's talking about the abominable acts that you find by Goyim, and it's the same also by a behemoth. So you learn that from the same place, Kechol Tuyevis HaGoyim, that it refers to the Nishkav with a behemoth. Rabbi Kiva, so similar, Rabbi Kiva argues here and says, Ein tzarech, it's not necessary to bring this pasuk of the Kadesh that it says compared to Goyim, because Harei Oimer over here in this pasuk itself, where it says Lo yisitin shchavtecha, it talks about the nishkav. Why? How do we know it's talking about the nishkav? Seeming shchavtecha means that you're doing the act, but you read it also Lo yisitin shchivascha, which would mean even if the behemoth is the one that's laying with you, and even if the person is the nishkav, in this case there's the warning as well. So it's all learned from one pasuk here. Okay, so now the Gemara explains that there would be a practical difference between the sources of the psukim here, between Rabbi Shmuel and Rabbi Kiva. And there's a machlekes the Gemara brings now between Amoraim regarding this difference, this nisnaf gemina the Gemara is going to say now. Says the Gemara, in the following case, what happens if a person did two averis? Haba ala zchor vehevi olav zachar. In a case where the person comes on a zachar, meaning that he's the sheikhiv, he's the one doing the act, and at the same time, or not at the same time, but in the same helim, with the same lapse of unawareness. And we're talking here about a carbon chatos. And then, hevi Allah of zachar, he's the nishkav, and a zachar had a relation with him. He allowed a zachar to have a relation with him. So is he going to be chayiv once or twice? Amar Rabavo, so Rabavo says, Rabbi Shmuel, chayiv shtayim. According to Rabbi Shmuel, he's chayiv twice. Why? Because chadam loy sishkav, according to Rabbi Shmuel, the sheikhiv, the source of the isra comes from the pasuk loy sishkav, and the chadam loy yiyeh kadesh. And the source of the nishkav is from a different pasuk, L'yeh Kadesh, not to be like Goyim. However, Rabbi Kiva and chayiv alachas. According to Rabbi Kiva, he'll be chayiv only once because it's learned from the same pasuk, Lo sishkav, and it's also read Lo shachev. So since it's learned from one pasuk, so you only chayiv once. So chadi, it's only once. Now, similar in the case of abala behema vehevi behema olav. Also here in this case where a person did these two isurim in the same helim, that on one hand, he's the one that did an act with the behemoth, and on the other hand, he allowed later a behemoth to do the act with him. So in this case, Amar Rabavo, the same thing Rabavo says. L'divrei Rabbi Shmuel chayiv shtayim. According to Rabbi Shmuel, he'll be chayiv twice. Chadam loisitin shchavtecha, because the source of the sheikhiv is from loisitin shchavtecha, and the chadam loyeh kadesh, and the source of the nishkav with the behemoth is from a different pasuk, loyeh kadesh. According to Rabbi Kiva, he's chayiv once because it's all learned, as we said before, from one pasuk, because he's two ways how to read the same pasuk, shchavtecha and shchivascha. So chadehi, since it's one pasuk, so therefore the sheikhiv and the nishkav with a behemoth will be chayiv once. This is according to Rabbi Vahu. Now Abai argues and says regarding the second point there, afila l'divrei Rabbi Shmuel, even according to Rabbi Shmuel, nami ein chayiv elachas. He's only going to be chayiv once. In this case, by the sheikhiv and the nishkav with the behemoth. Why? Because the chiksiv l'yeh kadesh, when it says in the pasuk l'yeh kadesh, comparing to the behavior of goyim, the abominable acts of goyim, begavri ksiv, it's speaking about a relation with another man. It's not speaking about a relation with an animal. So according to Rabbi Shmuel, there's no second source with the nishkav from that pasuk. So you'll only be chayiv once. So Ela Rabbi Shmuel, if that's the case according to Rabbi, so according to Rabbi Shmuel, Azare lenishkav minole. So according to Rabbi Shmuel, by the behemoth for the nishkav, where's the source for the warning for the nishkav with the behemoth? If he doesn't learn it out from L'yeh Kadesh, or where does he learn it out from? The answer is nafkele. It's learned from the pasuk that was quoted before in Pashas Mishpatim, because sheikhiv and behema mois yumas. So this is an extra pasuk, and this, if it's not needed for sheikhiv, tanei inyan lenishkav. So that pasuk is talking about the nishkav. And va'afkir achmanu lenishkav b'lashon sheikhiv. The Torah writes the isser regarding the nishkav in the language of a sheikhiv to compare ma sheikhiv einish v'hizer. Just like by the sheikhiv there's a punishment and there's the warning. Af nishkav einish v'hizer. So too by the nishkav there's both the einish and the warning. That's the source according to Abaye, the way he understands Rabbi Shmuel's opinion. Okay. Now the Gemara says that how about if this person, before we were speaking about if he did 2 Averis in 1 Helim, a discussion whether he would be chayiv once or twice. Now, in the case of, 1 second, or this is the continuation, where am I holding it here? Or maybe that's the continuation of the Gemara, huh? Okay. 1 second. That point that I just said is coming soon in the Gemara. But let's see. 1 second. The Gemara now says, "V'hizir hanirba lezachar v'hanirba lebehema." It's warning. This is a continuation. It's warning the nirba to a zachar and a nirba to behema that by both of them you're going to be chayiv. The person's going to be chayiv. In other words, the nirba is the nishkav. Both the nishkav by a zachar and the nishkav for behema. For both of them, you're going to be chayiv. Okay, now the Gemara says, Amar Rabavo said, L'divrei Rabbi Akiva chayiv shtayim, chade milei sishkav, and v'chade milei sitin shchavtecha. So according to Rabbi Akiva, you're going to be chayiv twice, because one is the source is from lei sishkav, and the other, the source is from lei sitin shchavtecha. So therefore, there's two different sources over here for the Isser. The Divrei Rabbi Shmuel ein chayiv ela achas. But according to Rabbi Shmuel, you're only going to be chayiv once, because idi v'idi lo yeh kadishu. Because according to Rabbi Shmuel, you learn both the nirba lezachar, nirba lebehema. Okay, so this is it's talking here about a case that was both. First, he was nirba to a zachar, and then afterwards he was nirba to behema. That's what it's going on. 1 second, let me just go back over a second to the Gemara before. Okay. V'hizir. That's how you read the Gemara. And just going back a second to the Gemara before. V'afke rachmana lenishkav v'loshen sheichev, ma sheichev onash v'hizir, af nishkav onash v'hizir. That's where you stop. That's how you read the Gemara. And then the Gemara starts a new thing, that we're talking about a case where a person hanirba lezachar v'hanirba lebehema. He first was nishkav with a zachar, and then he was nishkav with a behema. So he's going to be chayiv once or twice here. So again, Omer Rabavo, and this Rabavo says, L'divrei Rabbi Akiva chayiv shtayim. According to Rabbi Chive, he is going to be chayiv twice, because chadam olei sishkav, chadam olei sitin shchavtecha. It's 2 different psukim. L'divrei Rabbi Shmuel ein chayiv ela achas, because idi v'idi lo yeh kodesh. According to Rabbi Vo, both of these are learned out from that pasuk of lo yeh kodesh that's comparing to the way goyim behave. But Abaye Omar, according to Abaye, he says, Afilu l'divrei Rabbi Shmuel, even according to Rabbi Shmuel, nami chayiv shtayim. He's also going to be chayiv twice, because according to him, the chsiv kol sheichev v'behema mois yumas, because it's also learned from a different pasuk. It's learned from the pasuk kol sheichev v'behema, as we said already before. Meaning l'sheichev, tanei l'nishkav, af kerachman l'nishkav, v'loshen sheichev, ma sheichev onish v'hizer, av nishkav onish v'hizer. So since it's learned out from a different pasuk, so therefore, even according to Rabbi Shmuel, you're going to be chayiv twice. Okay, so now these are cases where there was a machlokes between Rabavo and Abaye, how you understand the opinion of Rabbi Shmuel. But now the Gemara says in the following case, Avol habal azchur vehevi zachar olav. If this person did all these 4 averis that we're talking about, number 1, he was a sheikhif with a zachar, and number 2, then he allowed the zachar to be sheikhif with him, and then abala behema, he was sheikhif with a behema, and vehevi behema olav, and he was the nishkav, he allowed the behema to be sheikhif with him. In such a case, when he did all 4, bein l'Rabavo, bein l'Abaye, both according to Rabavo and according to Abaye, l'Rabbi Shmuel chayiv shalosh. According to Rabbi Shmuel, it's going to come out that he's only chayiv 3. He's not going to be chayiv 4, because according to Rabavo, there's 2 that go together in the pasuk of La'iyah Kodesh. So La'iyah Kodesh, since it goes together there, so you can't be chayiv separately for the nishkav with a zachar and the nishkav with a bein, because they're both learned out from La'iyah Kodesh. So he's only going to be chayiv 3, and Rabbi Akiva chayiv shtayim. And according to Rabbi Akiva, he's going to be chayiv twice. And this is both according to Rabbi Vo and according to Abaye. Even according to Abaye, according to Rabbi Shmuel, you're only going to be chayiv 3. The Rashi here makes the cheshbon that according to Abaye, the case of Abal Zachar and Hevi Olav Zachar, they're both learned out from the word Leisishkav. So even though he doesn't hold like Rabbi Shmuel, that you have 2 that are learned out from the same pasuk of Liyah Kadesh, but in the pasuk of Leisishkav, they're both together. The Sheichev and the Nishkav are learned out from the same pasuk. So therefore, according to Abaye as well, it's going to come out that he's only chayiv 3. And actually, that's according to Rabbi Akiva. What I just said, the Nishkav and Sheichev, it's learned out from Leisishkav. That's according to Rabbi Akiva. But even according to Rabbi Shmuel, Abaye will agree that you only chayiv 3 times. To see over here in Rashi the cheshbon for this, but based on the drashas that we learned out before, you're only going to be chayiv 3 times according to Rabbi Shmuel, and according to Rabbi Akiva, both of them will agree that you're chayiv only twice. Okay, let's see one more point here in the Gemara. It goes back to something that was mentioned before regarding a mishkav zachar, that it said that even in a case where a person had a mishkav zachar, even with a child, doesn't have to be a zachar that's an adult. The Isser of Mishkav Zachar applies as well. So the Braisa says here, Machlokes, what age that is. Taner Rabbanan, we learned in the Braisa, Zachor lo yasu by cotton kegodel. By a Zachar, we don't compare a cotton and a godel. Okay, this doesn't mean that the one that you have a relation with has to be a godel, but there's a certain age though. There is a certain age, and we don't compare a cotton to a godel. What that age is, we'll see in a second. Now, behemah, however, if one has a relation with a behemah, also b'ktana k'gdoila. There, the behemah, there's no age. Doesn't make a difference. Ktana or gdoila. Now, ma'ila also by cotton k'godel. What does it mean that one that has a relation with a zachar, that you don't compare a cotton to a godel? It certainly doesn't mean bar mitzvah. It means something else. So what is the age? Rav said, le'asu bias pachis mi ben teisha shanim ki ben teisha shanim. Under the age of 9 and from 9 and up is not the same. So the isser only will apply if one has a relation with a zachar which is at least from 9 and up. Shmuel says le'asu bias pachis mi ben shalish shanim ki ben shalish shanim. The age is 3 years old. Below 3 you're not chayiv. Above 3 you are. Now, b'may kemiflagi, what's the source of their machlekes? Rav holds called the Isei b'Shoichev, Isei b'Nishkav. That we compare the Shoichev and the Nishkav regarding this case, that just like when it comes to the Nishkav, so the age is regarding, the age is from 9 years old. That's when you allow someone to be Shoichev. The Gemara Niddah speaks about this. That's what Rashi here brings. That just like by the Nishkav, the age is when the one that you allowed to be Sheichev with you was 9, so there the Isser applies. The same with the Sheichev, when he's Sheichev with someone else, if that is a boy that's 9 years old, the Isser will apply. The lesser be Sheichev, lesser be Nishkav. But if it doesn't apply by the Sheichev, it doesn't apply by the Nishkav. So that's the age, 9 years old. Shmuel holds Mishkevei Isha Ksiv, because over here by Mishkav Zachar it uses the term in the Torah Mishkevei Isha, so therefore we compare to the Mishkav by Isha. Just like by Mishkevei Isha, the age is 3 years old. Isha that's 3 years old, if one has bia with her, he's going to be Ayvar on that. So the same thing is also by Mishkav Zachar. The age is 3 years old. The Gemara brings a brayser where it says like Rav, Tanya Kvasei the Rav, Zachar ben Teisha Shana v'Yom Echad. By a Zachar, the Isser applies when it's from the age 9 and up. That's a clear brayser like Rav. Okay, there's a continuation here in this brayser, but the continuation of the brayser is a separate discussion. We'll see next time.